When we're young, we move with freedom and confidence, with a great resilience to injury. But somewhere along the line, we develop poor habits and become more vulnerable to back pain. Back Pain Solutions features evidence-based and practical advice to help you take back control of your health and get back to the activities you love. This is your guide to better back health through movement. So join us as we demystify some of the commonly held beliefs about back pain and build your confidence to a stronger back the smart way.
Okay, welcome back to the Back Pain Solutions podcast, everybody, with me, Ben James, and my co-host, Jacob Stain. We're back following a few solo episodes from Jacob. Things seem to have survived, and we're back together this morning to talk about morning routine and the importance of the morning routine, why it is relevant, why back pain risks first thing in the morning are a problem, what people are doing consistently wrong, and what people need to do every morning to start the day with a healthy back routine. And for those listening, you may be aware of the global sensation that was the miracle morning, popularized by Hal Elrod, and it's changed a lot of lives for the better. But how can we apply those kind of principles of consciousness and create a miracle morning for back pain sufferers across the world? Because it is important if you're to start your day off well when recovering from back injury and back pain. So that's the focus of the podcast today. And why not start, Jacob, by talking about your morning routine, my morning routine. What do we do that kind of sets us up for the day, as it were, with regards back health? What are your first steps when you get out of bed in the morning?
So my first steps are the consciousness that I give to the movement that I make when I actually step out of bed. And then I think of the spinal hygiene aspect of not bending down and picking stuff off the floor, because I know that's going to increase the pressure in my low back. And so, that's something I keep in mind. And then I'll go and have some water, maybe go to the toilet. And after a few minutes, not too long, then I will actually get down and start doing my exercises. That forms part of my morning routine.
Okay. And that getting out of bed, I want to focus on that initially. Is it a conscious movement when you get out of bed now, or is it kind of unconscious because you're kind of so well trained to keep that back neutral that you kind of do it without thinking? Because I think that's one thing for a lot of people. Initially, there's a lot that has got to be applied from a consciousness point of view to really think about that movement. And that's got to, I tell people, that's got to be trained. It's got to become subconscious. It's not got to become part of your kind of neurology. So you just do it, for want of a better term,
Yeah, exactly. I think that the more you do it, the less you have to think about it, right? I tell my patients, you always have to be conscious about it. You're going to have to keep it in the back of your head, and you can't let it go completely and expect it to happen 100% naturally. You have to be aware that that's what you want to do and that's how you want to treat your back. But I really have to give it minimal thought. It is something that just happens in a way without thinking about it. And you know what I mean? I don't completely not give it any thought. I have to be a little bit aware of it.
There's an awareness. Yeah, I was going to say there's an awareness, and every now and again you might, as a patient, you might kind of slip into a bad movement, but you catch yourself and you suddenly, it's that consciousness of saying, hang on, was I moving well then? Was I moving as I need to move to keep that back safe? So no, that's an interesting point, because I think from my point of view as well, and particularly now with having a young daughter, and in a cast, we mentioned on a previous episode that my daughter's got hip dysplasia, so she's currently in a cast. Now, first thing in the morning, one of the first things I do is go into her when she wakes. And so you've got to be really super careful at that point. Lifting a child with or without a cast is quite a weight, particularly first thing in the morning when we are vulnerable. And that's something that I've really had to be conscious of in terms of keeping that back in neutral. And one piece of advice that I will give anybody with children, and Jacob, you no doubt have thought this, and maybe not consciously so, but if that cot height, if the height of that cot or the edge of the cot is above your hips, very, very challenging to keep your back in neutral and get that baby out of the cot. So what you might want to think about is having some form of platform so that you can stand up and get your hip height above the edge of the cot, because at least that way you can keep that back in neutral and move from the hips, which is so fundamentally important. Without that, you've got to bend your spine over the edge of the cot to get the child out, and that is going to be a huge problem, particularly first thing in the morning for back pain sufferers and disc injuries. Huge issue.
Yeah, that's a very good one. I haven't thought about that. And we're our cot is still quite high because our little one is 8.5 months. He cannot stand up yet. I suppose that's going to happen soon.
Yeah.
But that's a good one. And just getting back to the consciousness aspect of your movement, the more you do something in a good way in terms of your movement, the more you strengthen the communication between the brain and the muscles that you need to make that movement. So the easier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the goal, is to use all the muscles properly that you need in order to stabilize whatever needs to be stabilized during that movement. And that's what you achieve when you keep making the same movement over and over and over and over in the correct way. And that provides you the stability and the protection to either recover from your back injury or to maintain good back health.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean the movement aspect, the kind of physical side of it is huge. And the other point of it, you know, back to this kind of miracle morning, the way I introduced the show there, is positivity. You know, if you're not in that positive mindset when you wake, or trying to get into that positive mindset, you know, that is going to impact the ability to rehabilitate and get better quickly. You've got to believe you can get better. Yes, you've got to do the right things in order to do so, but you've got to believe that you can get better. So starting off with a positive attitude is actually quite a fundamental piece of advice to try and get into that mindset. And with the right information, with the support from the website that we've got and the information we share, hopefully we're starting to get people to see that with the correct movement, with the correct habits, with the correct spine hygiene, you will and can get better. So believe that you can and be positive, but absolutely be conscious and thoughtful of those movements, particularly first thing in the morning. And we've said this time and time again, in the first half hour of the day, that disc height reduces significantly. You know, it gets very hydrated overnight, and then that hydration over time, the pressure of gravity by standing pushes that fluid out of the discs, and at that point you're losing disc height. So it is vulnerable first thing in the morning. So those conscious movements are hugely important at that time of the day. So Jacob, you mentioned exercises. What are some of the exercises you do? Do you do them within the first half hour of the day? And if so, why are they safe? Do you walk before you do those exercises? What are some of the things that you're doing exercise wise?
Because my back is doing quite well these days, because I think most of you will know from the previous podcast that I had a very bad back injury, and it took me a while to recover from that. And that's how I learned so much about my own back health. But these days it's going really well with my back. So I don't have to take too much care with getting up and moving for the first half an hour, 45 minutes before I do my exercises. I don't have to decompress too much. If I start early in the morning and I have to be at work at 7:30, then I'll do my exercises quite soon after getting up, maybe 15 minutes after getting up. And that goes and works really well for myself. So shall I just go ahead and tell you what I do, Ben?
Yeah, go for it. I'm interested to know what exercises you do. Do you do them every morning, and do you do them even if you're going to be doing another workout later on in the day, maybe at the gym?
Yeah. So I have a fixed morning routine that I do. I do 4 exercises. 3 of these exercises are specific for my back. And I do those regardless whether I'm going to train late in the day. And this I do to prepare my body for my work. Because as a chiropractor, we bend over a lot. We have to lunge. We shift from one leg to the other, twisting through the hip. So there's a lot of movement going through the body throughout the day. And so I don't want to throw myself into that position of having to treat patients and exert force through my core and through my hips if I haven't actually turned on the muscles and woken up the communication between my brain and these muscles to protect my spine, especially. So I start in the morning with, first of all, I start with the bird dog. So I'll get on my hands and knees. I'll get going with the bird dog. I'll do 5 to 10 second holds, 3 to 5 times each side. And then I go into the side plank. I do the side lying hip thrust, which is, on the bottom leg, I pull my knee up. And then at the top leg, I push my knee forward, almost like I'm running on my side. I'm running on my elbow and on my knee. This is probably my favorite exercise because it wakes up the quadratus lumborum, the QL, on the side of my low back, this big muscle next to my spine, my low back spine, and it also wakes up my glute med. So the one of my buttock muscles that really protects my hip or get me to use my hip more. So taking away work from my low back. And I always feel great after doing this exercise. I feel immediate stabilization in my low back. And then the third exercise I do is the McGill crunch. And so the McGill crunch is a very safe, small sit-up where I keep my upper back on the floor. I don't actually come with my upper back off the floor. And I maintain a neutral low back spine. So I don't push my low back into the floor. I perform this with my hands underneath my low back, elbows off the floor, fill my lungs, and then I really push with my diaphragm everything down towards my pelvis. So I create this really good bracing effect, which I hold for 5 seconds, and then I breathe out for another 5 seconds through pursed lips. And I do 5 of those, and then I repeat those 3 exercises I repeat twice. I make 2 rounds of it. And I do another simple push-up plus on my hands and feet just to warm up my shoulders because we work a lot with our shoulders and we twist our arms in, and I don't in the past I've had impingement, and I just warm up my shoulders so I stay away from any of those injuries.
Yeah, and I think the key point here is though that despite the fact that you're rehabilitated now, and that low back injury that you suffered some time ago is healed and under control, you still religiously do these exercises every single morning. So it's become a lifestyle choice, and I think that's the key. It's got to be preventative, not just a let's get out of pain. This has got to be a preventative approach, and I think this is one of the big problems that we have in society today is that we're very reactive. We're not proactive. We need to start looking at preventative medicine, and this is a good example of that, whereby yes, you've had a problem that you've reacted to, but now you're doing what you need to do to prevent that problem coming back again. And I think this is where people miss the rehabilitation and the long-term mindset. It's going through the daily chores or challenges, which, let's face it, shouldn't take too long. And what's it take you? 15, 20 minutes, maybe?
Takes me 7 minutes.
7 minutes. So 7 minutes of work, first thing to get your body ready for the day. But the impact that's having in terms of preventing any issue coming back again, and the pain and the frustration of that is huge. And so there's a lesson for everybody, that don't just focus on getting out of pain now and then you can go back to everything that you did before and you don't have to think about it again. Let's prevent the problem coming back. Build that strength, build that endurance, build that healthy routine to make yourself strong in the long term. That's got to be a better approach, surely.
And I want to add to that the mental aspect that you mentioned before. I found since I've been doing this, the preparation I do or I get from it mentally is huge. I feel so good after my exercises. After that I do a cold shower, and I'm awake. I'm ready to go. And now in the summer I sit outside for 10 minutes or so. I have my breakfast there on the side of my apartment where the sun comes up. But after my exercises, my body feels good. I can pick up the little one, and I'm prepared. I'm ready when I get in the car. And this is usually after I've had a very busy previous day at work. So yesterday, I got back from holiday. I had a massive Monday. I worked the whole day, and then usually your body is pretty broken the next day. And I
Yeah.
did my exercises, and I felt ready. So later on today, I'll get back to patients, and I don't have to think about my body twice in terms of will it support me throughout the day. I just have confidence.
Yeah, and I think I echo what you say about that kind of positivity. From a personal point of view, I do very similar exercises. I add in the baby get up for my right shoulder, where I had a bit of impingement previously, and just want to keep on top of that. I find that a really useful exercise for the shoulder stability that we talked about before, and also some stability work on my feet, because as we know, or as you know, my feet intrinsically are pretty weak, and that's something that really has had to be again a lifestyle choice to try and build up that strength and build up that stability, because again they're such an important foundation for healthy movement. So, but I feel so good after it. You feel just much more prepared, ready, alert for the day. And similarly, I do the cold shower routine. Again, following some of the information read about Wim Hof and other popular programs, but a lot of people, a lot of friends kind of react and say, "Oh, how do you do a cold shower?" But again, it's just so invigorating to get you prepared, not just physically but mentally for the day, and you just feel so much better having that morning routine that is healthy, is preparing yourself physically and mentally for the day ahead. You find yourself far more focused and far more effective as a result, I find. And I think that is the mistake a lot of people make, because they're setting an alarm, and particularly in winter when it's darker, those colder mornings, those wet mornings, you set an alarm, you roll out of bed, or a lot of times, as we've talked about before, you throw yourself out of bed, which is not healthy for the back. It'll be straight into the shower, or potentially straight down, sitting for breakfast, jump in the shower, jump in the car, off to work. Not just physically detrimental, but mentally, stressful. So if you have to set your alarm that little bit earlier, then set your alarm a little bit earlier. But take the challenge over the next 5 days to try and follow a similar process as we've just said. Think about the way you're getting out of bed. Think about the movements for the first half hour, and don't necessarily do the exercises, which you will find on www.smartstrong.co.uk. You'll find information there, and on our YouTube channel, you'll find some of these exercises which you can use as a guide, as well as looking at our ebook, which you can get free on the website. But if it's not doing exercises initially, then go for a walk. I find that taking a walk as well is really, really beneficial mentally and physically, just to get that back moving. And again, if you are suffering from pain, walking is probably a better thing to do initially before looking to introduce some of those exercises, because you really want to decompress that spine first thing in the morning. But take the challenge over the next 3 to 5 days. Just say to yourself, I'm going to set my alarm 20 minutes earlier. I'm going to think consciously about how I'm getting out of bed and keeping that spine in neutral. And I'm going to go for a walk before then taking a shower and easing myself into my day. I'm not going to get in my car for the first 30 minutes. As we've said before, don't sit down in a car in that stooped, slouched position first thing. Give yourself time to ease into the day, and you'll feel not just physically but mentally better, and that will really help set you up for the day. And that's one of the things I think, Jacob, that consistently find that patients do wrong. That there's no real thought process into that morning routine. There's no real thought process into what they're doing first thing in the morning that is impacting their back health.
Yeah, I can't agree more. That's totally my point of view as well. And I with a lot of my patients, I encourage them and I help them through a morning routine, especially when we reach a point where it's going much better with them. And quite often I have patients, they've fallen back 2 or 3 times after being recovered. They get back into their busy lifestyle, work and kids, and they want to do everything they can. But if you give them the understanding of you do these exercises in the morning, you're going to feel much better, and you're going to most likely prevent anything bad from happening unless you go do something silly. And they get it, and especially once after they've fallen back a couple of times, they don't want that anymore, and they attach so much value to being able to pick up their kids, or or drive somewhere without having a back hurting. And so then they get into the morning routine. And I think for people listening to this, when you have had similar experiences to some of my patients or myself, you are able to attach value to what we're telling you today so much easier.
Yeah.
And for those people who haven't gone through it and don't really see the need for this, I would just, but you have a little bit of backache, and maybe you have, you're prioritizing your body in other ways. I would suggest you go and try what we suggest. Create a morning routine. Like I said, 7 minutes, no more than 10 minutes, and just see what it does for you. Just try it out.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is about taking ownership, as we said before, and trying it, taking a bit of a challenge. See it as a challenge. If you listen to this episode, say, well, over the next 3 to 5 days, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna see how it makes me feel. I'm gonna see how it makes my back feel. And it's a progressive thing. This is why it's always recommended from our point of view that even patients, when they're getting better, when they're feeling that pain is decreasing, we want to see them to make sure there's that accountability. We can help to progress those exercises, change those exercises, keep them doing that morning routine. These things are so fundamentally important for long-term back health. It can't be a short-sighted, I want to get out of pain, and once I'm out of pain, I'm okay again. Because the reason you're in pain in the first place, for the vast percentage of people, is it's a progressive, sedentary or repetitive action that has caused that problem. And for most people, they're not going to change their jobs. And so they're going to be vulnerable to that back pain again at some point if something doesn't change. Now, you may have got that advice, you may have got that passive treatment, you may be doing a few exercises, but don't stop them. And the morning routine is a great opportunity to really set yourself up. And like we say, it doesn't need to take long, but it can have a fundamental impact on your back health. So the recommendations, really, if you're suffering from pain now, it's think about how you're getting out of bed, as we've said before, because the first 30 minutes of the day, you're really vulnerable. And don't just throw yourself out of bed. Think consciously about how you keep that back neutral, how you brace those abdominal muscles, as we've talked about previously. And again, over on the website is information on that to keep that spine in neutral as you're getting out of bed. And then don't sit for the first 30 minutes of the day. Maybe go for a walk. Think about that first 30 minutes before you're getting in the car. And then gradually, as that pain starts to settle, as you're thinking about it throughout the day and you're thinking about your spinal hygiene and health throughout the day, then the morning routine can start to introduce some exercises that have been demonstrated, researched, and evidenced are safe for the back, but help build core strength, help to build that endurance, which over the long term is going to help stabilize the low back and the spine. So you don't need to do exercises now, but in the next 3 to 5 days, really think about that morning routine and getting out at a minimum and having maybe a 10-15 minute walk, intentional walk, so that you're really getting that co-activation of the muscles, which will help stabilize the back, and you will feel so much better for it. And the cold shower is another episode, I think, Jacob, and the benefits of that. And maybe that's something that we'll touch on and do an episode at some point, because again, it seems a bit of a shock and surprise to a lot of people, the thought of doing that first thing in the morning, again, particularly when it's dark or wet. But if you employ a certain method and you ease yourself into it, then you really will awaken to its benefits. But hey, that's another episode. I think some good points there, just in this short episode of our first episode back together, just to give you some insights into our morning routine, what we do to look after our low backs, and what you should be doing. Because again, it is down to you to help yourself get out of this back problem. And if that means the pain of getting up a little bit earlier, then that's what you need to do. but it will have a huge impact on your back health. So really take that challenge over the next 3 to 5 days and give it a go. Jacob, anything to add on this episode? Or is it pretty clear?
I think we've said it, and let's end it there.
Okay, guys. Well, listen, as always, head on over to the www.smartstrong.co.uk website. You can always leave us a message there on the contact us page if you want to ask any specific questions. Download our ebook. It's free. There's an opportunity there to really understand a lot of the problems people face, a lot of the exercises that are going to be of benefit to you. So take advantage of that. Give us some feedback. We're getting some good feedback on that ebook, which is great. It's really helping a lot of people out. And as always, head on over to iTunes, give the show a rating, get in touch. It really helps spread the message, spread the word. And we really appreciate that the messages and the feedback we're getting so far. Jacob, thank you again. And guys, we'll see you on the next show.